The Crithian warship moved through the darkness of space like a hunter searching for prey. Commander Vec stood on the bridge watching the screens that showed empty space ahead. His crew had been patrolling this sector for weeks without finding anything interesting. Today would be different. The sensor officer made a clicking sound. "Commander, I have detected a small ship. It appears to be human." Vec felt satisfaction rush through his body. Humans were rare in this part of space. Capturing one would bring him honor and recognition from the high command. The war with humanity was still new, and most Crithians believed it would end quickly. Humans were supposed to be weak, their ships slow, their weapons primitive. "Disable their engines," Vec ordered. "I want whoever is inside that ship alive." The weapons fired with precision. The human vessel tried to turn away, but it was too late. Its engines flared bright and then went dark. The small ship drifted helplessly in the void, unable to move or fight back. Vec sent his boarding team across. They cut through the hull and entered the ship. Minutes later, they returned with a single prisoner. The human was young, maybe 30 years old. He had dark hair and blue eyes that showed no fear at all. He wore a gray uniform with few markings. The guards brought him to the bridge and forced him to his knees before Vec. The commander looked down at the human, studying the strange creature that Earth sent to fight them. "Tell me your name," Vec demanded through the translation device. The human looked up at him calmly. "Lieutenant Jack Morrison, United Earth Navy, serial number 7739241. You are very far from your home, Lieutenant Morrison." "Just taking a look around," Jack said with a small smile. Vec felt anger rise in him. This human showed no proper respect or fear. "You will tell me about your mission. You will tell me where your fleet is located. You will tell me about your defenses." "No, I don't think I will." The Crithian commander leaned down closer to the human. His body was 3 times larger than Jack's. "You do not understand what will happen to you. You are alone here. Your ship is destroyed. Your people do not know where you are. You will answer my questions or you will suffer greatly." Jack's face did not change. "I already told you my name, my rank, and my number. That's all you're getting from me." Vec made a gesture to his guards. "Take him to the prison cells. We will see how long he remains stubborn." The guards grabbed Jack and pulled him toward the door. The human called back over his shoulder as they dragged him away. "You really should let me go. This is going to end very badly for you." Vec watched the human disappear down the corridor. Then he turned back to his crew. "Set course for Sigma Station. We will deliver this prisoner to our intelligence officers there. They have ways of making humans talk." The crew moved to obey. The ship turned and began moving toward the Crithian outpost. Vec felt pleased with himself. Capturing a human officer was an excellent achievement. It would look good in his record. What Vec did not know was something important about Jack Morrison. He was not just any lieutenant in the Earth Navy. He was the younger brother of Admiral Kate Morrison, the commander of the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. And the small tracking device hidden in Jack's uniform was still working, still sending out its signal into the darkness of space. The prison cell was cold and dark. A blue force field covered the entrance, trapping Jack inside. He sat on the metal bench and waited. He had been here for 2 days now, though it was hard to tell time in the constant darkness. The Crithians had questioned him 3 times. Each time an intelligence officer named Sec came to ask questions. Sec tried threatening him. Then Sec tried promising him better treatment. Jack said nothing except his name, rank, and serial number. He knew something the Crithians did not know. His capture was not completely an accident. He had been on a mission to map their patrol routes through this sector. Yes, getting caught was not part of the plan, but the intelligence he had gathered was valuable, and he knew Earth needed it. More importantly, he knew his sister Kate would have noticed when his tracking signal went silent. She would have traced his last known location. The only question was whether she would come herself or send a rescue team. Knowing Kate, she probably argued with her commanders about launching an unauthorized rescue mission. Jack smiled, thinking about his sister. Kate had always been protective of him, even before she became an admiral at the young age of 37. Their parents had died when Jack and Kate were teenagers. Kate had become both his sister and his guardian. When Jack joined the Navy, Kate tried to talk him out of it. She worried about the dangers. Jack reminded her that she could not stop him from following her example. The force field at the cell entrance flickered. A guard entered with a tray of food. The guard set it down and turned to leave without speaking. "How much longer until we get to wherever we're going?" Jack asked. The guard stopped and seemed to think about whether to answer. Then it made a gurgling sound that the translator turned into laughter. "Long enough for you to change your mind about being stubborn, human. Commander Vex says the interrogators at Sigma Station are very creative with their methods. I'm looking forward to meeting them," Jack said. The guard left, and Jack looked at the food. It was nutrition paste, designed to keep prisoners alive without giving them any comfort. He ate it anyway, thinking about what might happen next. Kate would come. He was certain of that. The question was when and how. He hoped she would not do anything too crazy, but knowing his sister, she probably would. The ship suddenly shook hard. Jack felt the familiar feeling of dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They had arrived at their destination. He stood up and moved closer to the force field, trying to see down the corridor. He heard voices shouting somewhere above him. Something was happening. Then all the lights turned red and an alarm began making a loud wailing sound. "All hands to battle stations," a voice announced in the Krithian language. "Unknown vessel approaching. It will be in weapons range in 3 minutes." Jack's heart beat faster. That had to be the rescue team. But who had Earth sent? He pressed against the force field, trying to hear more information. The ship rocked violently, throwing Jack against the back wall of his cell. The force field flickered and died, leaving the cell entrance open. Jack did not wait or think. He stepped into the corridor, looking for anything he could use as a weapon. Another explosion hit the ship, even stronger than the first. The corridor tilted sideways and emergency lights came on, painting everything red. Jack grabbed a piece of broken pipe from the wall and started moving toward the sounds of fighting above him. He needed to reach the bridge. He needed to find out what was happening outside the ship. And he needed to help whoever had come to rescue him succeed in their mission. The bridge of the Earth warship Valkyrie was organized chaos. Officers moved between their stations with quick efficiency, calling out information and updates. At the center of everything stood Admiral Kate Morrison, her green eyes locked on the main viewing screen in front of her. "Target locked and ready," the weapons officer reported from his station. "Waiting for your command, Admiral." Kate studied the Krithian vessel on her screen. It was a standard patrol ship with moderate weapons and shields. It was no match for the Valkyrie. Her ship was massive and powerful, covered with railguns, missile launchers, and the newest plasma weapons that Earth's best engineers had created. The Valkyrie had been built for one single purpose: to show overwhelming force anywhere the Earth Navy needed it. "Open a communication channel to them," Kate ordered. The communications officer worked quickly at her console. "Channel is open, Admiral." Kate's voice was cold and hard. "Krithian vessel, this is Admiral Kate Morrison of the United Earth Navy warship Valkyrie. You are holding my brother, Lieutenant Jack Morrison, as your prisoner. You have one chance to release him unharmed and surrender your ship. If you refuse, I will destroy your ship and kill everyone on board." There was a long silence. Then Commander Vex's face appeared on the screen. His 4 eyes were wide with what Kate recognized as fear. "Admiral Morrison," he said, his voice shaking slightly through the translator, "we did not know the prisoner was connected to you. This is a legal capture during wartime operations." "I don't care about your excuses," Kate interrupted. "I only care about my brother. Send him over in a shuttle right now or face the consequences." Vex's mandibles clicked nervously. "I cannot do that. He is a prisoner of war and must be treated according to the rules. I will transport him to the nearest neutral station where prisoners can be exchanged." Kate's expression did not change at all. "Wrong answer. Tactical officer, fire a warning shot across their bow." "Yes, Admiral." The Valkyrie's forward railgun fired. A projectile moving at incredible speed screamed past the Krithian ship, close enough to make their shields light up and fail. The patrol ship shook from the near miss. "That was your warning," Kate said. "The next shot will not miss. Release my brother now." On the screen she could see Vec talking quickly with his officers. The Krithian commander clearly understood that his ship could not fight against the Valkyrie in direct combat. "Admiral," Vec began, "perhaps we can discuss terms and negotiate something that works for both of us." "No negotiation. Release him or I start taking your ship apart piece by piece," the communications officer interrupted. "Admiral, we're detecting weapons fire inside the Krithian vessel. They appear to be fighting among themselves." Kate leaned forward in her chair. "Jack, he's making his move." "Tactical officer, target their weapon systems but avoid hitting critical areas." I don't want that ship destroyed while my brother is still on board. Understood, Admiral. The Valkyrie fired again with precise accuracy. The shots tore through the patrol ship's weapon mounts and disabled their engines completely. The Crithian vessel went completely dark, floating dead in space. Life signs? Kate demanded. Still reading multiple life forms, Admiral, including one human signature on the detention level. Kate turned to her second-in-command, Commander Paul Griffin. Prepare a boarding team with full combat equipment. I want my brother back within the next 10 minutes. Yes, Admiral. Griffin acknowledged and moved quickly to carry out her orders. As Griffin organized the boarding team, Kate's communications officer spoke up again. Admiral, we're receiving an angry transmission from Sigma Station. They're demanding to know why we're attacking their patrol ship. Kate did not take her eyes off the viewing screen. Tell them that we're recovering stolen property. If they have a problem with that, they can file a complaint with Earth Central Command. I'll be happy to explain my actions after I have my brother back safely. On the screen, she could see her boarding team's shuttle launching from the Valkyrie, racing across the space between the two ships toward the crippled Crithian vessel. She clenched her fists tight, forcing herself to remain patient and wait. Hold on, Jack, she thought to herself. I'm coming for you. Jack fought his way through the Crithian ship using nothing but the piece of broken pipe he had found, and the advantage of surprise. The first guard he met went down hard, knocked unconscious before he could raise any alarm. The second guard managed to fire his weapon, but Jack was already moving, using the narrow corridor to his advantage. The Crithians were learning something new about humans. They were unpredictable in close combat. They were stronger than they looked, faster than their size suggested, and absolutely determined when cornered and fighting for survival. Jack reached an equipment storage area and broke it open, finding what he needed. There was a Crithian sidearm weapon and a breathing mask in case the ship's atmosphere failed. He checked the weapon's power level and moved toward the nearest access shaft. The ship shook again, and Jack knew that whoever was attacking outside was doing serious damage to the vessel. He climbed up the access shaft, coming out on the command level just as another explosion tore through the hull somewhere behind him. He could hear Commander Vec shouting orders, his voice high with panic and fear. Jack moved carefully along the corridor, staying low and quiet. He reached a junction point where he could see into the bridge area. Vec stood at the command station while his crew scrambled around him in confusion. On the main viewing screen, Jack saw something that made his heart fill with both pride and a little bit of fear. The Valkyrie hung in space like a dark angel of death, all smooth lines and deadly weapons. Kate had come herself to rescue him. Of course she had. He should have expected nothing less from his protective older sister. Fall back to Sigma Station, Vec ordered desperately. We need reinforcements and support. The weapons console suddenly exploded, showering the bridge with sparks and debris. A tactical officer collapsed to the floor, injured. The ship's lights failed completely, replaced by the dim glow of emergency systems. Engines are completely gone, someone reported in a panicked voice. All weapons are offline. Shields are down. Vec slumped in his command chair, defeated. On the viewing screen, Kate's face appeared, and she was speaking to him. Jack could not hear what his sister was saying, but he could see Vec's total defeat in his body language. The commander's mandibles drooped down and his eyes were dim. Then the proximity alarm sounded throughout the ship. Incoming shuttle, a Crithian officer announced with fear in his voice. They're boarding us. Jack decided it was time to make his presence known to everyone. He stepped onto the bridge, holding the Crithian weapon ready in his hands. Commander Vec, he said in a calm voice. Every Crithian on the bridge turned to stare at him in shock. Vec rose slowly from his command chair, looking at Jack with something that might have been respect mixed with fear. How did you escape from your cell? The commander asked. Your ship is being shot to pieces, Jack replied simply. The prison cells weren't exactly a priority for your damage control teams. Now you have a choice to make. My sister is sending a boarding party over here, and they're going to be heavily armed and probably not in a good mood. You can surrender to me right now peacefully, or you can wait for them to storm in here and take you by force. Vec looked at his crew, then back at Jack. You are one human, injured and alone on an enemy ship full of my warriors. True, Jack agreed with a nod. But I'm the human whose sister just crippled your entire vessel without even trying hard. And I'm willing to bet she gave orders to shoot anyone who gets between her people and me. So the real question is, do you really want to test that theory and see what happens? The bridge fell silent except for the sound of alarms and the groan of damaged systems throughout the ship. Finally, Commander Vec made a gesture of submission. He lowered his arms and stepped away from the command console, admitting defeat. "We surrender to you." "Smart choice," Jack said, keeping his weapon trained on the bridge crew. 5 minutes later, the boarding team cut through the hull and stormed onto the bridge. They were led by Commander Paul Griffin, who took in the scene with raised eyebrows and obvious surprise. "Lieutenant Morrison," Griffin said with a slight smile, "the Admiral is going to be very relieved to see you alive and well, though I suspect she'll have some strong words about you taking over the enemy bridge all by yourself." Jack grinned back at him. It was either that or sit in the prison cell and wait around. "That's not really my style." "Clearly not. Let's get you home where you belong." As the boarding team secured the Crithian crew and began moving them toward the shuttle, Jack looked up at the viewing screen where the Valkyrie waited in space. He could almost feel Kate's presence there, watching everything, waiting for him. Time to face the music, he thought to himself. Kate was going to hug him tight and then probably yell at him for getting captured in the first place. He would not have it any other way. That was just how things worked between them. The shuttle ride back to the Valkyrie was short but felt endless to Jack. Commander Griffin had given him a clean uniform and run a medical scan, declaring him fit for duty despite some bruises and minor cuts. The boarding team treated him with a mixture of respect and amusement. They were clearly aware that their admiral had just broken several regulations and rules to rescue her younger brother. When the shuttle docked and the airlock cycled open, Kate was standing there waiting in the landing bay. She stood with her arms crossed over her chest, her admiral's uniform perfectly neat and pressed, her expression carefully neutral and professional, but Jack could see the relief shining in her eyes and the slight tremor in her hands that she was trying to control. Jack stepped off the shuttle and came to attention, giving her a proper military salute. "Lieutenant Jack Morrison reporting as ordered, Admiral." Kate held his salute for exactly 3 seconds, maintaining proper protocol and procedure. Then she closed the distance between them in 2 quick steps and pulled him into a tight hug. "You idiot," she whispered into his shoulder. "You absolute idiot." Jack hugged her back just as tightly. "Good to see you too, Kate." She pulled back slightly, her hands gripping his shoulders, studying his face carefully for any signs of injury. "Are you hurt? Did they harm you in any way?" "I'm fine, really. They tried questioning me, but nothing physical. I'm okay, I promise." Kate nodded, then seemed to suddenly remember they had an audience of crew members watching them. She stepped back and straightened her uniform, slipping her admiral's mask back into place over her emotions. "Full debriefing in 1 hour," she said in her formal command voice. "Griffin, get Morrison cleaned up and fed. Medical will want to run a complete examination on him." "Yes, Admiral," Griffin acknowledged professionally. As the crew dispersed to their various duties, Kate walked with Jack toward the officers' quarters section of the ship. Once they were alone in the corridor with no one watching, her shoulders relaxed slightly and she let out a long breath. "I'm going to catch hell for this operation," she said quietly. "Unauthorized attack on a Crithian vessel, violation of multiple engagement protocols, risking a capital ship for a single prisoner extraction mission. Do you want me to talk to the command officers?" "I can explain that you didn't really have a choice in the matter," Jack offered. Kate shot him a sharp look. "I had a choice. I made my decision. I would make the exact same choice again without hesitation." She paused, thinking. "But yes, you will be giving a detailed statement to command. We'll need to present this as a strategic rescue operation, recovering valuable intelligence data from behind enemy lines." "Which is technically the truth," Jack pointed out. "I did successfully map their patrol routes and patterns before I got caught by their ship. Lucky for you and me both." They reached the guest quarters and Kate paused at the door. "Get some rest now. We'll talk more after the official debriefing session. And Jack, yeah? Don't ever scare me like that again." "I mean it," Jack smiled at her. "I'll do my very best. But we're at war now, Kate. Neither one of us can really promise to stay completely safe." "I know that," she said softly, her voice sad. "Doesn't mean I have to like it or accept it easily." 3 days later, the Valkyrie arrived back at Earth Central Command headquarters. The debriefing session had actually gone better than either of them expected. Jack's intelligence information on Crithian patrol patterns and routes was indeed quite valuable. The fact that Kate had recovered him before, the enemy could extract that information from him, was noted very favorably in the reports. The attack itself was being presented as a legitimate military operation for the rescue of a captured officer who possessed vital intelligence data. The Crithians had filed a formal diplomatic protest about the incident, but given that the two sides were actively at war, there was little actual consequence beyond some political posturing and angry words. Commander Vec and his crew had been transferred into a prisoner exchange program. The Crithian commander had requested permission to speak with Jack before he was sent away, and Jack had agreed to meet with him. They met in the detention area where the Crithian prisoners were being held. The cells were far more comfortable than the one Jack had occupied on Vec's ship, with proper lighting and climate control. "Lieutenant Morrison," Vec said, standing up as Jack entered the room, "I wanted to speak with you one final time before my transfer away from here." "Commander," Jack acknowledged with a respectful nod. "I badly underestimated you," Vec said directly and honestly. "I underestimated all humans, really. We were told by our leaders that you were weak, divided among yourselves, and easily conquered. But what I witnessed and experienced was something very different from those lies. Your sister destroyed my entire ship just to save you. You fought through my vessel alone and took control of my bridge. This is not weakness at all." Jack considered his words carefully before responding. "War makes everyone learn hard lessons about their enemies. Maybe this particular lesson will help end this conflict sooner rather than later. Perhaps you are right." Vec's mandibles moved, and what Jack had learned was their version of a sad smile. "I will tell my people and my leaders what I witnessed here. I will tell them that humans fight for each other with a fury and determination we did not anticipate or prepare for. That your loyalty and love for one another make you far more dangerous than any weapon system you possess." "That sounds about right to me," Jack agreed. "We definitely take care of our own people." They spoke for a few more minutes, sharing observations about the war and their respective cultures, before Jack finally left. He found Kate waiting in the corridor outside the detention area. "What did he want to talk about?" she asked curiously. "He wanted to understand what happened during the rescue. To understand us as humans, I think." Kate nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's actually a good thing in the long run. Maybe if they understand us better as a species, they'll think twice about continuing this war against Earth." "Maybe," Jack agreed, though he sounded doubtful. They walked together toward the large observation deck, where Earth hung beautifully in the viewport. All blue oceans and white clouds and green continents. Jack had missed seeing it during his 3 years of deep space assignment. He had missed it even more during his 2 days held in captivity. "So what happens now for you?" Kate asked. "I've got 2 weeks of mandatory leave according to the medical officers. Then I'm supposed to report to the intelligence division for a new assignment. Apparently my recent experience makes me valuable for training purposes." "Good. At least you'll be stationed Earthside for a while. That's much safer than deep space patrols." Jack laughed at her concern. "Kate, you command the single most powerful warship in the entire fleet, and you regularly patrol hostile space looking for enemy ships. You really don't get to lecture me about safety and taking risks. I'm your older sister. I'll always lecture you about safety and risks. That's my job." "Fair enough, I suppose." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their home planet turn slowly below them. Jack thought about the strange nature of war and conflict, how quickly things could change and how easily life could be lost in an instant, but also how strongly bonds between people held together, and how far someone would go for those they truly loved. The Crithians had seen Jack as just another prisoner, just another source of intelligence information to be exploited and used. They had not understood what capturing him would actually mean. They had not anticipated that a massive warship would come calling with his sister's fury and determination behind every weapon. They understood now. The lesson had been taught clearly and violently. And maybe, just maybe, that new understanding would help bring real peace a little bit closer to reality. "Thank you," Jack said quietly, still watching Earth turn below, "for coming to rescue me when you did." Kate did not look at him, keeping her eyes on their beautiful home planet, but her hand found his and squeezed it tight. "Always, little brother. Always and forever." In the vast darkness of space surrounding them, the mighty Valkyrie cruised steadily on its path, carrying them safely home to Earth. The weeks that followed Jack's rescue became a turning point in the war between humanity and the Crithian Empire. Word spread quickly through both militaries about what had happened. The story took on a life of its own, growing with each retelling. On the human side, morale skyrocketed to new heights. The crew of the Valkyrie became legends almost overnight. Admiral Kate Morrison was celebrated not just as a brilliant military commander, but as someone who would move heaven and earth for her people. Recruitment offices across Earth reported record numbers of young people signing up to serve, inspired by the story of loyalty and rescue. On the Crithian side, the reaction was more complex and troubling for their leadership. Commander Vec kept his promise and spoke openly about what he had witnessed. Other Crithian officers who had encountered human forces in battle began sharing their own stories. A picture emerged that contradicted everything their propaganda had been telling them. Humans were not weak. They were not divided. They did not break easily under pressure. Instead, they fought with a determination that seemed to grow stronger when their people were threatened. They possessed advanced technology that the Crithian intelligence services had badly underestimated. And perhaps most importantly, they were willing to take enormous risks to protect each other. 3 months after the rescue, Jack sat in a briefing room at Earth Central Command. He had been working with the Intelligence Division, helping train other officers on Crithian tactics and psychology. His experience as a prisoner had given him unique insights that proved valuable. Kate entered the room and Jack stood automatically to salute. She waved him back down with a slight smile. "Relax, Jack, this isn't a formal meeting. What's going on?" he asked as she sat down across from him. "The Crithians have requested preliminary peace talks," Kate said, her voice carefully neutral. "They've agreed to meet with our diplomatic team on a neutral station." Jack felt his eyebrows rise in surprise. Really? That's faster than anyone expected. Apparently, their military leadership has been doing a reassessment of the situation. They've realized this war is going to cost them far more than they anticipated. The incident with your rescue played a role in that calculation. How so? Kate leaned back in her chair looking thoughtful. Think about it from their perspective. They captured what they thought was a minor intelligence asset, a single lieutenant on a small scout ship. Within days, they had one of their patrol vessels completely destroyed, their crew taken prisoner, and they learned that humanity has warships capable of projecting force anywhere we choose. That's a pretty clear demonstration of both capability and will. Jack nodded slowly, understanding. They realize that if we'll do that for one lieutenant, we'll do much worse if they actually threaten Earth or our major colonies. Exactly. Commander Vec's reports apparently made quite an impression on their high command. He described you fighting through his ship alone, described me bringing the Valkyrie to get you back, described the loyalty and determination he witnessed. It scared them, Jack. They realized they're not fighting the enemy they thought they were fighting. So what happens now? Now we see if they're serious about peace or just trying to buy time to regroup, Kate said. The diplomatic team leaves next week. I've been asked to accompany them as a military advisor. That makes sense. You're probably the most famous officer in the fleet right now. Kate made a face. I'm not comfortable with the fame and attention. I just did what needed to be done. Any other commander would have done the same thing. Would they, though? Jack asked quietly. A lot of commanders would have followed protocol, filed the proper reports, and waited for authorization from the top. You didn't wait. You acted immediately. He's my brother, Kate said simply, as if that explained everything. And in a way it did. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Jack spoke again. Do you think the peace talks will work? Kate considered the question carefully. I think there's a real chance, yes. The Crithians are practical. They started this war because they thought it would be easy and profitable. Now they've learned it will be neither. If they can negotiate favorable terms and save face, they'll take that option over years of costly warfare. And what about you? What do you want? I want the fighting to stop, Kate said firmly. I want our people to stop dying in deep space battles. I want families to stop receiving notification that their loved ones aren't coming home. If we can achieve that through diplomacy instead of more violence, then that's what I want. Jack reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're a good person, Kate, and a good officer. Earth is lucky to have you. She squeezed back, her eyes suspiciously bright. We're lucky to have each other. That's what matters most to me. The peace talks began 2 weeks later on a neutral station operated by an independent trading consortium. The negotiations were tense and difficult, with both sides bringing decades of mistrust and recent combat experience to the table. Kate attended as promised, representing the military perspective for the human delegation. On the Crithian side, Commander Vec was also present, having been promoted for his honest reporting and insights about human capabilities. During a break in the formal sessions, Vec approached Kate in one of the station's common areas. She tensed slightly, her hand moving instinctively toward where her sidearm would normally be. But this was a diplomatic zone and weapons were not permitted. "Admiral Morrison," Vec said through his translator, "may I speak with you privately for a moment?" Kate studied him, then nodded. "Of course, Commander." They moved to a quiet corner away from the other diplomats and officers. Vec seemed to struggle with how to begin, his mandibles clicking nervously. "I wanted to apologize to you personally," he finally said, "for capturing your brother, for threatening him, for the distress I caused you and your family." Kate was quiet for a long moment, processing this unexpected apology. "You were doing your duty as you understood it," she finally responded. "We were at war. You saw an enemy vessel and you captured it. I can't fault you for that, even though I hated you for it at the time." "Your response was remarkable," Vec continued. "The way you came for him immediately, risking your ship and career. It made me understand something important about humans that our propaganda never told us." "What's that?" "That you are strongest when you fight for each other. Not for territory or resources or political ideology. You fight for the person standing beside you. That makes you very dangerous enemies, but potentially very loyal friends and allies." Kate considered his words carefully. "Is that what you want, Commander? For our peoples to become friends and allies?" "I want the killing to stop," Vec said simply. "I want to go home to my family. I want my crew members who survived to see their loved ones again. If friendship between our peoples can achieve that, then yes, that is what I want." Kate extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Vec reached out and clasped it with his own three-fingered appendage. "Then let's work together to make these talks succeed," Kate said. "For all our sakes." The negotiations continued for another month, with progress coming in small increments. There were setbacks and arguments, moments when it seemed the talks would collapse entirely. But slowly, carefully, an agreement began to take shape. The final treaty included provisions for a ceasefire, the exchange of all prisoners, the establishment of neutral buffer zones between human and Crithian space, and the creation of diplomatic channels for resolving future disputes without violence. When the treaty was finally signed, Jack was present in the audience, watching his sister put her signature on the document that would end the war. He felt an overwhelming sense of pride in what she had accomplished, both as a warrior and as a peacemaker. After the signing ceremony concluded, Kate found Jack waiting for her outside the main conference hall. Without saying a word, she walked up and hugged him tightly, not caring who saw or what protocols she might be breaking. "We did it," she whispered. "It's really over." "You did it," Jack corrected. "This whole thing started because you came to rescue me. That act changed everything about how the Crithians saw us and understood us." "Maybe," Kate admitted, "but I didn't do it to start peace negotiations or change anyone's mind about humanity. I did it because you're my brother and I love you." Everything else that happened was just a consequence of that simple fact. They stood together in the corridor, two siblings who had been through so much together, watching as delegates from both sides mingled and talked cautiously, beginning the long process of building trust and understanding. 1 year later, Jack stood on the observation deck of a new space station, jointly operated by humans and Crithians, that served as a hub for trade and cultural exchange between their two peoples. He was there as a liaison officer, helping facilitate communication and cooperation between the military forces of both sides. It was still strange sometimes, working alongside the same species that had held him prisoner not so long ago, but it was also encouraging to see how quickly things could change when people chose cooperation over conflict. His communicator beeped, and Kate's face appeared on the small screen. "Hey, little brother, how's life on the frontier of interspecies relations?" "Interesting," Jack replied with a grin. "We had a joint training exercise today. Watching human and Crithian pilots work together was something I never thought I'd see." "The galaxy keeps surprising us," Kate agreed. "Listen, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be in your sector next month. The Valkyrie is doing a goodwill tour, visiting joint human and Crithian installations. That's great. I'll make sure we have a proper welcome prepared for you. Nothing too fancy," Kate warned. "You know I hate formal ceremonies and excessive attention. Too bad. You're a hero now, Kate. You have to learn to accept the recognition that comes with that status. She made a face at him through the screen. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to leave her brother behind enemy lines. That's exactly what makes you a hero, Jack said softly. You did what you thought was right, even when it broke the rules and put your career at risk. You showed everyone what humanity is really about at its core. Kate was quiet for a moment, her eyes suspiciously bright. I miss you, Jack. I miss having you nearby where I can keep an eye on you and make sure you're safe. I miss you too. But we're both doing important work out here, building something better than what came before. Mom and Dad would be proud of both of us. Yeah, Kate agreed, her voice thick with emotion. They really would be. After they said their goodbyes and ended the call, Jack turned back to the viewport, watching ships of various designs and origins moving through the space around the station. Human vessels, Crithian ships, and even a few from other species that were beginning to take interest in this new alliance. He thought about the long journey that had brought him to this moment. Getting captured had been terrifying, but it had also set in motion a chain of events that changed the course of history for both their peoples. Kate's rescue mission had become a symbol of human determination and loyalty. It had shown the Crithians that humanity was not an enemy to be taken lightly, but also not one that was interested in unnecessary violence or conquest. The door behind him opened, and Commander Vec entered the observation deck. The Crithian officer had become something of a friend over the past year, despite their rocky first meeting. Lieutenant Morrison, Vec greeted him. I wanted to inform you that the Joint Security Protocol has been approved by both our commands. That's excellent news, Commander. It took long enough to get everyone to agree. Vec made the clicking sound that Jack had learned was Crithian laughter. Indeed, getting military officers from two recently hostile powers to trust each other with security coordination is not an easy task. But we're making it work, Jack said. One step at a time, one day at a time. Yes, Vec agreed, moving to stand beside Jack at the viewport. You know, I have been thinking much about that day when I captured you. About everything that happened afterward. About how one small decision can change so much. What do you mean? If I had not captured your ship that day, none of this would exist. Vec gestured at the station and the ships outside. The war might have continued for years, costing countless lives on both sides. But because I captured you and because your sister came for you with such force and determination, everything changed. It is a strange thought, Jack considered this. My sister has a saying that she likes. She says that we can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to it. You captured me, yes, but you also had the courage to report honestly what you witnessed, even when it contradicted what your superiors wanted to hear. That took real bravery. As did your sister's decision to violate protocol and risk everything for your rescue, Vec added, and your own decision to fight your way through my ship instead of remaining passive and waiting for help. I guess we all made our choices, Jack said. And those choices led us here, to peace instead of endless war. They stood together in comfortable silence, two former enemies who had become colleagues and friends, watching the dawn of a new era for both their peoples. 6 months later, Kate stood at a podium on Earth, addressing a gathering of military and civilian leaders from multiple worlds and species. She had been asked to speak about leadership and decision-making under pressure. I'm often asked about the day I took the Valkyrie into Crithian space to rescue my brother, she began, her voice steady and clear. People want to know if I was afraid, if I doubted my decision, if I thought about the consequences for my career. She paused, looking out at the audience. The truth is, I didn't think about any of those things. I only thought about Jack, alone on an enemy ship, and what I needed to do to get him back safely. Everything else was just noise and distraction. Some people have called me a hero for that decision. I don't see it that way. I see it as doing what any good leader should do, taking care of the people under their command and protection. My brother was my responsibility, just as every member of my crew is my responsibility. But something important came from that day, something I never anticipated or intended. My action sent a message not just to the Crithians, but to all of humanity and to every species watching our conflict. The message was simple but powerful. We take care of our own people. We don't abandon those who serve beside us. We will go to extraordinary lengths to bring our people home. That message resonated because it speaks to something fundamental about who we are as humans. We are strongest when we stand together, when we fight for each other rather than against each other. That's the real lesson from that day, not my individual actions, but what those actions represented about our shared values and our collective determination. The audience applauded, and Kate stepped down from the podium. As she left the stage, she saw Jack waiting in the wings, pride shining in his eyes. "Great speech," he said, giving her a quick hug. "I meant every word," Kate replied. "Come on, let's get out of here. I've had enough of ceremonies and public speaking for one day." They walked out together into the sunlight of Earth, two siblings who had been through war and peace. Capture and rescue, conflict and reconciliation. Above them, ships from a dozen different worlds moved through the sky, a reminder of how much had changed and how far they had all come. The story of the human prisoner and the warship that came calling for him had become legend, told and retold across the galaxy. But for Kate and Jack, it was simply the story of family, of loyalty, of refusing to give up on the people you love no matter what the cost. And that, in the end, was the most human story of all. It was what made humanity both dangerous to their enemies and valuable as friends and allies. It was the strength that came not from weapons or technology, but from the bonds between people who cared for each other. As they walked together through the peaceful streets of Earth, Kate put her arm around her brother's shoulders. "You know what the best part of all this is?" she asked. "What's that?" "We're both still here. We made it through, and now we get to help build something better for everyone." Jack smiled and nodded. "Yeah, that's pretty good." And it was.